Dad was the uncle to me and my two brothers, Ryan and Cody. When you look up the definition of an uncle, he was that. A relative from a marriage of your parents. However, he was more than that. Dan was more of a funkle. If you don't know the definition of that, I can tell you. A funkle is like a regular uncle, just much cooler, well-trained in the arts of fun and shenanigans, exceptional and handsome. I know my brothers and he would totally agree with this definition as well. At a very early age, I was a flower girl when he married my Aunt Patty. I always remember looking at wedding pictures throughout the years, and he would always say to me, "Who is that ugly little girl?" And I would always respond with, "Your favorite niece." And he would always laugh like I was lying. Anyone who knew my uncle knows he would not want us sitting here being too serious for too long, so I'm going to try to fit in our fondest memories with him as quick as I can. When my brothers and I were younger, we would often travel to Disneyland with Dan and my Aunt Patty. I remember one time he showed up in a burgundy and white van, the one they warn you about as a child to stay away from. But upon entry, it wasn't that bad. It had the coolest swivel chairs and a bench seat in the back. On this trip to California, he introduced me and my brother to the songs "My Ding-a-Ling" and "A Horse with No Name." We sang these two songs over and over and over again, laughing because they were just the silliest songs. Another time, my brother was taking too long in the shower, so Dan took several trips to the ice machine at the hotel, gathering ice and water. After he had enough, he opened the bathroom door and poured it right over the top onto my brother Ryan. We were all laughing, Ryan screaming in the bathroom, trying to find a towel, but the only thing he could do was wrap himself in the shower curtain to hide. Another time at Disneyland, I'm sure we rode It's a Small World, my aunt's favorite ride, 10 times in a row. Dan would always make funny faces and let us know how boring that ride was. However, he did it for my aunt. After a long day at Disney, it was always time for Denny's when we left. Looking back now, it was not about the rides, the treats, walking around for hours, or standing in line for what seems like eternity. It was about being with him and my aunt in his favorite place, making the best memories. We also road tripped to South Dakota quite a few times where we would visit our great-grandma. Those were long drives, but they never felt too long with him as our driver. We would play road games along the way, but the one I remember most was Slug Bug. By the time we got there, we would all have sore arms because I think he was the only one to ever see a slug bug. South Dakota was full of good memories also. We went to Sitting Bull, a lot of sightseeing, and swung in to see Mount Rushmore on the way home once. But our favorite was visiting our great-grandma at her assisted living. Where she stayed, there was a basket of flowers when you walked in. Every time we walked in, Dan would be sure to grab this basket and take it straight to her room. She would always laugh and tell him they were going to think she stole it. She would take it back out to the front, and it always ended up coming right back to her room. Dan made friends there quickly as well. I remember one in particular. He nicknamed her Paste Face. She earned this name because she would put on her lipstick, and it would cover her lips, her upper lip, her chin, and her teeth. One time in South Dakota, we took a little road trip out to the cemetery to visit some grave sites. I remember Patty getting out of the car first and started to walk away. This is when my uncle told us to stay in and buckle up, so we did. Dan drove off, honking, waving, and laughing, all while my aunt stood there shaking her head. It feels like we drove up and down that road a million times until he finally stopped and picked her up. When she got in the car, she was not happy. I remember her saying, "There were snakes out there and you just left me." He said, "We didn't leave you, we just didn't want to get out." As we grew older, Dan and Patty got a swimming pool and we became neighbors. We spent a lot of time swimming and hanging out at their house. I think it is here where he introduced me and my brothers to the Cobra Man and the Say Uncle handshake. Our road trips continued while neighbors. The one that sticks out the most is when we rode along to help his mom move to Oregon. We were in charge of transporting her dog, a little dog I can remember. As we approached the street, the dog was sitting up on the dash. Dan had the windows down and we were just cruising along. Dan turned the corner and to her house, and that dog slid right across the dashboard and straight out the window. The dog hit the ground and rolled. Dad pulled over, grabbed the dog, pulled up to his mom's house. We all hopped out as nothing ever happened to that dog. As we all got older and had kids of our own, Dad was ready to show them the Cobra Man, all his cool toys, games, pick them up from school in his Corvette to take them to lunch, and lots of swimming at their pool. One time him and Patty took my daughter Chloe out to lunch to hang out. I remember getting a video of Chloe blowing bubbles in her soda and her and Dad just laughing away. Dad would always help Patty make her house look like a winter wonderland for Christmas. Well, I know he would get the boxes of decorations down for her and then spend a whole day replacing batteries. This is something they love doing together, I think, because it was always beautiful at Christmas. Dad was the master present opener when it was not his turn. He would have most of his presents opened or figured out before we even started to open them. A few years back, he bought me a yodeling pickle. He usually had the most random gifts for people. There's a million things I could go on about. He was the best uncle a couple of kids could ever ask for. He made ordinary moments unforgettable. He loved to embarrass us in public. That's just who he was. Dan was one of those people who stayed true to himself no matter what and would lend a helping hand to anyone in need. He was real, honest, and unapologetic about who he was. I know by this point he would be telling me to hurry up, you're taking too long, you're talking too much, or he would have wandered off by now. But Dan, let's make a deal. You take care of mine up there, and we will be sure to take care of Patty down here. Thank you for the memories, the laughter, the love, the middle finger every time I've seen you. We will love you, we will miss you, and I will forever tell Grandma you flipped me off at the Christmas dinner table.